Malik began staying late at work. Nina didn't ask questions, not at first. She told herself he was building their future. That's what he said whenever she brought it up. "I'm doing this for us." But the distance grew. He'd come home tired, barely say a word, and sometimes he smelled like a mix of cologne that wasn't his, and perfume that wasn't hers. She watched him closely. The way he avoided eye contact, the sudden secrecy with his phone, the quick defensiveness when she asked simple questions. Her instincts screamed the truth, but she said nothing. Instead, Nina prayed, not for vengeance but for clarity.
If you haven't done so as yet, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Nina had always believed that the universe had a way of balancing things out. What you gave out, you'd eventually get back. She learned it from her grandmother, a quiet but wise woman who whispered old sayings like, "sacred secrets." "Karma never rushes, child," she'd say, pressing her palm softly against Nina's chest, "but it never forgets." Nina carried those words into adulthood, through college, friendships, even into her marriage. When she met Malik, he was charming, attentive, and driven. Their love seemed effortless in the beginning. He'd surprise her with flowers, call just to hear her voice, and tell everyone how lucky he was to have her. They married after 2 years of dating. At first, everything seemed perfect. But perfect things rarely stay that way.
If you haven't done so as yet, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Malik began staying late at work. Nina didn't ask questions, not at first. She told herself he was building their future. That's what he said whenever she brought it up. "I'm doing this for us." But the distance grew. He'd come home tired, barely say a word, and sometimes he smelled like a mix of cologne that wasn't his, and perfume that wasn't hers. She watched him closely. The way he avoided eye contact, the sudden secrecy with his phone, the quick defensiveness when she asked simple questions. Her instincts screamed the truth, but she said nothing. Instead, Nina prayed, not for vengeance but for clarity. If he was cheating, she wanted to know. If she was wrong, she wanted peace. Either way, she left it in the hands of karma. Then, Malik got sick. It started with fatigue. He brushed it off as stress, but it grew worse. He'd wake up in sweats, complaining of chest pain, dizziness, and tremors. Doctors ran tests, but the results were inconclusive. He was deteriorating, but no one knew why. Nina took care of him. She cooked, cleaned, sat by his side. But beneath her care, she watched with a growing curiosity. Something felt cosmic. One night, as she adjusted his blanket, he reached out and grabbed her wrist. His eyes were heavy, but his grip was tight. "Nina," he rasped. "I need to tell you something." Her heart thudded. "I was seeing someone." It wasn't a shock. It wasn't even a revelation. It was confirmation. "For almost a year," he whispered, "it meant nothing, but I messed up." Nina didn't flinch. She didn't cry, she simply looked at him and said, "I know." He stared at her confused. You knew?" She nodded. "Karma's been watching, Malik, and she doesn't miss a thing." He fell silent. The room, once filled with the sound of machines and his shallow breathing, felt heavier now. Nina walked out that night and sat on the porch staring at the stars. She didn't feel triumphant, she didn't feel rage. What she felt was balance. Over the next few weeks, his condition worsened. The woman he'd cheated with sent messages, but Nina ignored them. She didn't need her apology, or her explanation. Karma wasn't selective. It had its own way of dealing with everyone. One morning, Malik couldn't speak. His eyes followed Nina as she moved around the room. There was a haunting in them, regret maybe, or fear. She sat by his side and held his hand. "I forgave you before you even told me," she said quietly. "Not because you deserved it, but because I did. I needed peace." He blinked slowly, a tear slipping down his cheek. Nina leaned in, kissed his forehead and whispered, "Rest now. What's done is done." He died that night. The funeral was quiet. Few people came. Nina stood by his casket, her face unreadable. Some called her cold, others called her strong, but no one knew the weight she had carried or the silent war she had survived. After the burial, she returned to their home, packed up her things and left the keys on the kitchen counter. The house had become a grave of its own, holding memories too heavy to keep. Years passed. Nina never remarried. She traveled, studied and volunteered. She lived not with bitterness, but with awareness. She told her story to women in shelters, to young brides who looked afraid, and to strangers who just needed someone to listen. "Karma," she'd say with a soft smile, doesn't always strike with fire. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it waits, but it always comes. She never spoke Malik's name again. Not out of hatred, but out of release. His memory didn't haunt her. It taught her about love, about self-worth, about the unseen forces that keep the world in order. And every time she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the woman who was betrayed. She saw the woman who survived.
If you haven't done so as yet, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.